Some people call them IS, some people call them ISIS, some people call them ISIL. I call them assholes.
A 16-year-old schoolboy told the Daily Mail that he saw Islamic State fighters playing soccer with a severed human head inside the Yarmouk's refugee camp, located just 6 miles outside the Syrian capital, Damascus. In December 2012, civil unrest transformed Yarmouk from a thriving district into a combat zone for anti- and pro-government armies. Before Yarmouk's takeover by ISIS in April, close to 18,000 refugees had been residing there. Only about 2,500 of them, or 500 families, managed to escape. In just a week, the terrorist group has killed around 200 people.
All right, so the Yarmouk refugee camp, it's been a disaster for a long time. They've basically been keeping Palestinians in there, giving them virtually no rights. The Syrian government gives them pretty much nothing, and now ISIS is rampaging through there. Every time we do an ISIS story at this point, between beheadings and burning people alive, do you get outraged anymore? Or do you even, not even outraged? Like, I see this and it's just like, you see it on Twitter going by and you're like, up, soccer with the human head, up, another behead. Like, how desensitized to this stuff are you in general?
I can't speak for anybody else, but I'm definitely not desensitized, but it is unfortunately not shocking anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not desensitized to the horror of what this is. So, I mean, it gave me chills listening to that story again, but it's still one of those things where you're like, kind of think they would do something that abhorrent. Like, think of the worst possible thing.
And
They're probably, yeah, ISIS is doing that right now.
by the way, there's also history, sadly. There's history of guys doing this with heads. Al-Qaeda was doing it a couple of years ago. Where's your we've talked to ISIS a lot when I've had you on. Where's your desensitization level at these days?
I feel like every time I read something like this, I have the same gut sickness feeling reaction. I was reading that article and there was a part where they said that they were cutting children's heads off in front of their parents. That's the kind of thing that just makes you sick.
Yeah, they have kids literally doing the beheadings now too.
Like what you said, you think of the worst possible thing and they're probably doing it. So, it's already been clearly established that ISIS does not view the people who they do these things to as human. Yeah. They have no moral sense for that at all.
Yeah.
So whenever they do these things, it's like they're doing it to an inanimate object. They just do not care.
So what do you guys think their end game is? Because we never talk about this in the media. We talk about, well, should we bomb them? How horrible it is, et cetera, et cetera. But what's the end game? They can't behead everybody. You can't keep every woman covered head to toe just with the slits of their eyes. I mean, what do you think the end is?
I think their end game is to remove the slits altogether, because I think that's too much, that's way too much flesh. I don't know, because I can't put my mind in that kind of mindset.
Yeah, is that part of it though? We can't even
I can't even fathom. That's exactly it. At least I can't fathom what the hell is, what are you doing? Where is this, how is this going to end?
Yeah.
But for me, it comes back to, what are we waiting on? Clearly these are kind of animals. Let's just call a spade a spade. What the fuck are we waiting on?
So what should we do? What do you think? Because we've talked about this before, and I always say I'm not for intervention in general. We've fucked up so much in the Middle East. Look at Iraq now; it's basically not a country anymore. Syria is pretty much not a country by all standards. So I'm not really for intervention, and yet we're watching some truly horrific stuff happen. If we could have jumped in and stopped the Nazis earlier, if Twitter had existed back then and YouTube, and we would have seen what was going on, you know what I mean, and seen footage of crematoriums or whatever, we probably would have jumped in earlier and we would have saved millions of lives. So isn't it sort of incumbent on us to do something?
I would like to do something, but at what point are you crossing a line and putting yourself at risk or causing problems? And we already have a bad reputation as the United States of going places where we shouldn't be going and staying in other countries for too long. But at the same time, you see horrible things like this and you want to jump in and help. So even myself, I have a hard time balancing that in my own mind. I want to help them. Well, the United States is intervening all the time where they shouldn't be. Or, okay, I don't want to help them then. Well, what are you doing? So it's very...
So I think pretty much everyone in the country feels that way. I think that's what it is. We're watching something horrible. People are thinking what you're saying. What are we waiting for? And then the rest of the other half of the brain is going, well, we always fuck it up, so it's going to get worse. But what do you do with that?
You have to do something though, because I think that whether or not Monroe Doctrine or Manifest Destiny or whatever, the United States is a superpower. We have the ability to do so much more. And yes, we fucked up in the past. We have fucked up in the past. Learn from our mistakes. But one of the things that we have to learn from is, like you said, if Anne Frank was tweeting instead of writing in her diary, I would like to hope that we would have saved millions of people.
Yeah.
rather than waiting until pretty much the end to jump in and do something. Like, don't wait until another 1 million people are dead and we've seen 1 million beheadings and 1 million other obscene acts against humanity, and then you go, finally we're gonna come in. I'm like, that's 1 million lives that could have been saved. And maybe that's why some of those countries are in shambles, because we wait long and then go in and a whole bunch of people die and there's nobody to rebuild anything.
I think this is a fascinating philosophical argument, which they're not having on the news at all, which is why I wanted to talk about it here. What do you guys think? Do we have to do something? And when I say we, yeah, America, but does the world have to do something? Are we supposed to let it just go to shit? What do we do about this? Let us know what you think in the comments right now.